have another switch controller with a unresponsive L button. It's not really working at all, so I'm just going to hook it up to my switch and at least test it out, see if that's really the problem or not. Okay, so as you can see, that is a completely unresponsive L button. Okay, so we're going to have to get this controller apart and see what's going on inside with this button here. I've repaired quite a few of these now, so I should be actually quite good at it. Okay, so we're going to get this piece out here, which has the ZL button on it. Okay, so that should just lift out of the way. I'm going to zoom in for you. Okay, so I'm just going to take this button out of the way and have a look at this mechanism nice and close. Let me get my helping hand here, just with the magnifying glass, just to have a look, because believe it or not, I'm not as young as I used to be. Okay, that actually doesn't look too bad. It seems like quite solid contact. I'm just going to very gently put this back together, okay? Just to, I want to rule out the other button. Put the battery back in. So at least switches on. Let's put it back together and just have a look. Just we don't have to put the other button in. Let me zoom out. Let's pair it back up again. Okay, so this button here is working. Let's just test the button with the dental pick here, just to see. That is completely unresponsive. So that button there is completely unresponsive. So just pull it open again, and we'll disconnect the battery for a second time. Okay, so let's get this battery off again very carefully. Let's try not to. This ribbon cable is trapped, as you can see. Let's just try and get that out of the way. Swift pull for the battery. As long as you're not too vigorous with it, shouldn't really cause a problem. So we've got an issue with just this section here, which is very odd. I'm not entirely sure how this was damaged. This was my my kid's switch, so I'm not really sure how this happened. Let me just put some more light on it. There you go. So this button here, all this is connected. So from here, it runs all the way up to here and then across to here. So this button is completely unresponsive. There's nothing there whatsoever. I'm just looking for any possible breaks in this cable here. It's obviously nice and firmly down there and correctly seated. It's not come loose or come away. This board here is working perfectly. This one all of a sudden isn't working at all. I'm not seeing any signs of any liquid damage or anything like that, which is good news. The solder contacts don't look too bad. Certainly don't look like they've broken at all. Oh, there we have it. I'll see if we can zoom in. That is so very subtle, but I think this has been knocked. I don't know whether you're picking it up there, but if I tilt it that way, if you look very, very closely, it is the subtlest of movement. But you see this solder pin here? That is lifting. There is movement there, and there shouldn't be. That is not good. If I was to put some pressure on there, like that, this button would actually work. But to be fair, I think what we'll do is we'll just replace this here, this entire section again, but very much like the other video. But it's exactly the same problem. I wasn't expecting that. As far as I'm aware, this hasn't been dropped or messed up in any way. It's as far as I'm told. So yeah, gonna have to order the part from eBay and go from there. Okay, so we have the replacement part here, off of eBay. Links in the description. Just give it a check over. Again, this will be very similar to my previous video, and we'll get this installed much in the same way. Now with this, I've just loosely fitted this in place because I want to make sure everything is properly lined up before I finish it. So I'm just going to line the board up, make sure it goes through this positioning pin here before we tighten anything up, because if you don't, you could damage the board. Don't over tighten these screws either. All seems pretty good. Let's get it back together. That isn't exactly sitting correctly. Bear with me. It should sit better than that. It's not exactly springing back correctly. Getting that sitting in, but it's not springing back the way it should. That's better. So let's get this back together. This cable here, make sure it doesn't get caught down here. You don't want to damage the ribbon cable. You see, we have a problem here. That is stuck in there solid, absolutely solid. So we're going to have to get this back apart. So basically that's sitting in there the way it should, but the button isn't being allowed to be pressed. My guess is the button isn't exactly welded in the, it isn't exactly soldered in the right place. I've never had this much trouble with a button before. See, that works absolutely fine. You can hear it clicking. This goes over it. And it locks it into place. So that never usually happens. So I don't understand what's going on here. Okay, I think I've got the source of the problem here. If you look at these two buttons, they appear to be ever so slightly different sizes. Now, let's see if I can get the right angle. If you see that, see the size difference there? This button here is bigger than this one here, so it's not closing properly. And it's not sitting in there as it normally would, where it's protected, because there's a little insert here for it to sit while it's protected. And it's not doing that. So we have a slightly bigger button, which means we do actually have a problem when fixing this remote. I've put it back together without the other button in, and as you can see there, the actual button is fouling the case, and it's not allowing it to close the way it should. See what I mean? So it's rocking back and forth, and that's just going to knacker that button up completely. Well, it's been a week of back and forth with the seller of this part here, and I decided in the end to order from a different seller. The reason for that is it would appear that this part here is the wrong part. My guess is it's the part that it would fit an aftermarket switch controller, because this button here is obviously quite a different size. I'll zoom in and I'll show you what I mean. So as you can see, these bits look the same, but they're a different height. So this bit here is a good deal higher, sits a good deal higher than this bit here. So if I put them together, you can see the height difference on the top here. My guess is, like I say, it's a different part altogether for a different controller. So I decided to go there. I mean, the seller of this was very good. They basically sent out a replacement part, but unfortunately that replacement part was identical, and it's not something that I can actually fit. So we're going to do away with that, and we're going to go with this part here. So let's get it in the controller and see what happens. I will say that you want to be very gentle with this here. You don't want to over tighten anything, at least not until you're sure you've got a decent thread. And that's all firmly in place. Now we're going to put the ZL button on. Okay, so that's connected. I'm going to grab some of these other parts, like the actual L button and the spring. I usually keep these together. I do like to put things back together if I need to wait for a part or something, but on this occasion I decided to leave the controller in pieces. It is up to you how you go about it, of course. So let's install this button, see if there's any difference. That is already so much better. So let's pop this in here. And again, remember, make sure this cable doesn't get crushed. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time. And there we go. That sits perfectly. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So we'll get the other screws in. And hopefully get this controller back together. Now for the battery. Go underneath with this. Okay, battery's in. Everything looks good. Let's get it back together. I'll zoom out. And does it close? Oh, that closes absolutely smashing. Brilliant. We'll get the screws, final 4 screws in. I'm going to hook it up to a switch and give it a test. Okay, so I've got my switch here. I'm going to hook it up, see what happens. Brilliant, that's paired perfectly. There we go, another perfectly repaired controller, working absolute treat. Basically, with these controllers, be careful where you get the parts from, because there are a lot of fake parts out there and a lot of parts for aftermarket controllers. So as you can see, what I'll do is I'll zoom in so you can see again. These parts, obviously I have 2 of them because the seller sent a replacement part out, which turned out to be completely identical. They sit very proud of the board, whereas the actual official part, or the correct part, sits slightly lower and enables the controller to close. I was a little taken aback because obviously if you order a part, you expect it to be somewhat genuine, or identical, so you know the parts transfer nice and easily. It's the first time I've come across this, and I have fixed a few of these controllers, so let that serve as warning. And like like I say, the seller of this part was perfectly reasonable. I believe they were under the impression that it was a fully compatible part, but unfortunately it isn't. What I will do is I'll save this for if I ever have to repair an aftermarket controller. So thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you give it a like, and please consider subscribing to the channel. Until next time, I'll see you soon.
I need the silence, stop the violence of the war in my head. Time's the healer, the eraser of all done and said. And as I fall back to my shelter, I know I'll only find peace in your smile.